Yeah, we can
Huh?
start.
Okay, cool. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting ServiceNow Mavericks Live. I already see a couple of familiar faces joining us. So but to everyone who has joined us for the first time, I would like to quickly introduce what Mavericks are. So, we are a group of ServiceNow enthusiasts who enjoy exploring new possibilities and share it with the community. Today, I'm really excited because we have a very special guest with us who is a stalwart in the area of reports and dashboards of Now World. I would also like to take this opportunity to, introduce myself quickly. Uh-huh. Also,
Guys, be on mute if you want.
Gopal, you're on mute.
am I on mute since beginning?
No. In the middle, you went on mute.
Okay, so I was just introducing myself, quickly to all of you. So I'm Kopal Garg, currently working with Deloitte USI for HRSD transformation projects. Also, I'm an artist by heart, however, a never learner by attitude. So we have our special guest Robert, who needs no introduction, but I will still, take you through some of his recent accomplishments, which I would really like to highlight here. So about Robert, he is 4 times ServiceNow Hackathon winner, 9 times ServiceNow Knowledge Conference speaker, 5 times community MVP, 1 time developer MVP, and ranked 10th All India, community winner, and of course the CX of Vivid Chats. So we have a agenda today where we will get started what we are going to do. So fasten your seatbelt, guys. Robert is going to take us through an amazing sessions on reports and dashboards, and then we will have the floor open for any one-to-one queries, any question answers you have, and lastly we will be wrapping up with the next Maverick sessions that you can expect. So over to you, Robert, from here. I will stop sharing.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes.
And can you see my agenda slide?
No, I can see myself, Robert.
You can't see my agenda slide?
Yeah, I can
Now
see.
I can. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. Namaste, namaskar, and assalamu alaikum. Hope I didn't butcher those too badly. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. I'm really honored to be here. You really did me a service by inviting me, and I hope I hope what you sit through today is worth it. I had a long think about what I wanted to present today, and I took liberties with the topic a little bit. I'm actually going to show you very, very little of performance analytics in the tool because you guys are all ambitious and resourceful because you're here, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that you guys can and gals can figure out the mechanics of performance analytics, right? I don't need to teach you what an indicator is or what a breakdown is or how to make bucket groups. These are all things you can go to docs and figure out for yourself or take the course or do by experimentation in the tool. What is more difficult to learn and without the experience is how to guide a customer when it comes to reporting and more specifically performance analytics. And so what I've done is I've taken a list of concepts that I've formulated in my head that I frequently use to explain to my customers so that whatever they do in PA is successful, okay? And this is why it's so important is that there is no real lack in the ServiceNow community of people who know how to do performance analytics. And what I mean do, but like turn the wrenches. If you tell me to build X, I will build you X. There's no shortage of that. But there is a critical, catastrophic lack of people who can guide a customer to the results that they want. And the results are provided by building performance analytics mindfully, right? And to some extent, what I'll teach you today will go beyond performance analytics and will serve you in any reporting paradigm. You parachute into a customer site, maybe they don't have PA, maybe they have Tableau, or maybe they have some other reporting tool, right? I hate to see it. I love performance analytics, but this will still allow you to deliver the goods, to get them to not deliver the goods, the technical solution, but an overall solution that actually works and gets them to where they want to go. Okay, so we are going to talk about a few things. There's going to be, first we're going to reveal the dirty little secret of processes that we put on ServiceNow. Then we'll talk about, hey, what exactly is performance and what is improvement of performance. We'll talk about the 4 purposes of reporting. Then we'll take a short break and talk about what does PA actually do. I think everybody has a good idea of that, but sometimes it helps to, like, I have an explanation that I give my clients and it helps solidify that. So it's more like teaching you to tell people what PA does. Then we'll talk about the 4 whys of PA, the 3 fundamentals of building a PA indicator, and then we'll talk about the advantages of embracing the humanity of your report consumers and the importance of targets and thresholds. There's a ton more that we could talk about, but this is pretty ambitious for the time we have. So here we go. Everybody can still see my slide deck?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the dirty little secret about processes on ServiceNow is that process is not natural. There's nothing about the processes, incident, problem, change, project and portfolio management, GRC, SecOps, facilities, HR process. There's nothing natural about any of that. It is entirely unnatural. Our very souls chafe at the idea that we have to follow the process. Okay? Embrace that. And let me just illustrate this. So, you know, I know politics is a hot button issue, but let's not talk specific politics here. But let's look at a protest. Okay? So if you can see a protest, here you have a large number of people who are incredibly ideologically aligned. These people all want roughly the same thing, okay? They are also incredibly passionate. Otherwise, why would they be taking time out of their day to assemble together in a protest that may or may not have any kind of impact, okay? Incredibly ideologically aligned, incredibly passionate. But what can you get a protest to do? Practically nothing. The best you can do with this kind of paradigm is maybe get them all to walk in the same direction. Maybe get them to chant the same thing. So this is people in their natural state. Right? Let's organize a protest. Let's go protest. It's even simple. Let's protest this one thing. But they're protesting a simple thing, but they can't do simple actions except for walk the same direction, chant the same thing. And that's if you're lucky, okay? Most of the times they're all going to disperse into different areas they want. They're all chanting different things. It's just going to be noise. Okay? Now, let's compare that to a marching band. Now, I'm not sure if marching bands are big where you guys are from, so let's consider another metaphor of a Bollywood dance, okay? So here we have people who may not be ideologically aligned. They might come from different religions. They might have different political views. They might come from different social castes. But here they are doing something incredibly difficult. Like, I couldn't do this if I trained for the next 10 years. And they're all doing it together, and they're perfectly synchronized, and they can make changes on the fly. So how come this isn't natural? Well, it's not natural because it takes energy to put into the system, right? So these people follow a process to get to the point where they are doing, you know, this beautiful dance, right? And the process said, we'll follow these steps and we'll look for failures and we'll correct the failures and we'll keep going through the process, cycle after cycle after cycle. These people will practice this for, dozens, maybe hundreds of hours, and then, on shoot day, we get this result. So this is the glory of what process can achieve for us. But we have to realize that it is not natural. We have to pour energy to it. And so this is why performance analytics, I think, is the keystone for ServiceNow success. I don't want to be on a ServiceNow gig that doesn't have PA behind it. Because performance to measure if the process is working or not, right? So why would I pour tons of energy into a process if I have no means of figuring out if the process is working or not? Okay, so what is performance and what is improvement? Why do we bother pouring the energy into the processes? Well, we do that so that we get some kind of uniformity result. Like, this is uniformity, right? A bunch of people from backgrounds. Okay, but in our world, performance comes down to doing something uniformly. Speed, okay? Like, can these all be done at a uniform speed? Can they be output at a uniform quality? Can they be output at a uniform safety? Can all of our outputs look exactly the same for making like physical products? Can we all be equally compliant? These are the things that we are aiming for. And so when you start on a PA job, and I'm going to encourage you guys a screenshot right now. When you start a PA job, always be cognizant of, in this process, what is the performance? Like, what is the process directing the energy towards, right? Sometimes you want speed, right? In a call center, like, just get me more phone calls through. Sometimes you want compliance, which may fly in the face of speed. I don't want fast, I want compliant. So these are the ways you can measure performance, and so much more. And the key thing is measuring them at scale. I don't want to have to apply a manager to look at these things individually for 12 people. I want analytics to measure it across hundreds of people, thousands of people. Right? So performance analytics is about measuring performance and allowing you to improve performance, whatever that means, at scale. Okay, now let's talk about the 4 purposes of reporting. Whether you're using ServiceNow out of the box reporting, PA, Tableau, Excel, or your naked eyeball, right? What is it that you're doing when you're doing reporting? Okay, and I break it down into 4 things. Okay, and there is managing work, and this is just, I have a list of things to do, right? That's a report, and the best this can get is that I have a report that allows me to manage my work that is sorted by the work I should be doing first. Don't think about this in terms of just raw priority. Think about it in terms of like on any angle, what work should I be doing first? Okay, so that's the first thing that's like level 1 maturity of reporting, is managing work. Okay, then we have maximizations of outcomes. You maximize your good outcomes, right? It's good when these things are compliant, fast, and high CSAT scores and whatever. So let's try and maximize the good outcomes. We also want to minimize the bad outcomes. These things cause breakages. They're not safe. Low CSAT score. We want to minimize that. Okay, and the last form of reporting, and I think probably by far the most common, and I hesitate here because I don't want to color it as a bad thing, okay? But on its own, without anything else, it is a bad thing. And that's insight mining. And you look at a dashboard with, you ever see those dashboards that are just way too busy? They've got like dozens of things on it, dozens of scores and lines and whatever. That's an insight mine. Or you have one of those reports where people says, "Oh, let me have, a dozen filters across the top so I can just slice and dice the data, right? And filter it the way I want. Those are insight mines. And I use this image very purposely because you're basically going into a place of darkness, right? There is no illuminated path. You just get the report. And you labor all day to get anything valuable out of it. So any report where you have to like sit and stare at it and search for the insight is I call it an insight mine. There are places and times where insight mines are necessary, but for the most part, you want to be in the world on the left-hand side here. You want to be in the world of maximizing good outcomes and minimizing bad outcomes. And so that should always color your worldview with performance analytics. If somebody says, I need this indicator, think about what of these four things they're trying to achieve. Okay? And where you can, guide them towards the maximizing good, minimizing bad. Okay, now we're just going to take a quick step and talk about what is it that performance analytics does, okay, that straight out of the box reporting doesn't, okay? So straight out of the box reporting is more like querying, right? Ask the database a question about stuff right now. How many incidents are assigned to me and late? How many tickets are assigned to my group and late? But it doesn't do anything in arrears. So we have this idea of a really, really important performance indicator. The boss says, this is our KPI. This is how we're measured on success. Okay? And if you only had ServiceNow reporting, no performance analytics, this is what you'd be able to tell. Okay? It's the middle of on 0.75 on the scale. Okay? Is that better or worse than we did before? Now, as soon as you're in that question, now you're in PA zone. Because sometimes I can't make this question go back in time with a normal query. There has to be, somebody must have stored the past numbers in order for me to take advantage of that. So with PA, it's essentially a summarization engine. It says, here's my indicators, take this indicator every day, get me the score, and store it so that I can have a history of the score. Okay, so now we can see that on our really, really important performance indicator, we've gone up from 0.4 to 0.8. Okay, so is that good or bad? Well, we don't know because we don't know the direction, but we also don't have any kind of threshold or target, right? It might be that I need to get to 0.8. That's where I need to be. So if I'm below my target, I'm not as good as I should be. If I'm below my threshold, I'm great, right? So the idea of is our current performance trending towards where we want to be or where we want to avoid is another thing that PA allows us to do because we can put in targets and thresholds. Okay, and the last item that performance analytics brings to the table is forecast. Okay, and forecast allows us to ask the questions of when will I meet my target or breach my threshold based off of where I am now and how I have performed. Okay, so these four elements make up like what performance analytics provides for you. Okay, and you should always think about that in terms of like, okay, I need to know where I was at, I need to know where I am at, and I need to know where I should be going or should be avoiding, and then how much time do I have left based on performance. And God, I could do an hour-long show on forecasting alone, but I'm going to leave it to you to kind of do the R&D on that. Okay, when you've got this paradigm nailed, I want you to go back and revisit the four reasons for reporting. And with performance analytics, you can kind of get into a positive reinforcement cycle. Okay, so at first we have work management, which is just lists. Let me list the tickets that I need to get done. But if we know what outcomes are good and what outcomes are bad, and the weight of those outcomes, like hook or by crook, I need a high CSAT score, right? That's the best thing I need. The next best thing I need is it's done on time. And then the next best thing is that it was responded to quickly. And they have different weights. But if you integrate all that together using Performance Analytics Spotlight, basically your PA indicators can help you rank your work such that you always know the most important work to get done based off of your indicators. Okay? And then once you're working in a way that is informed by your outcomes, then that naturally makes the outcomes better. Like as you apply your good outcome reporting to your work management, you'll get more maximization of the good. I hope that's making sense. All right, let's talk about the 4 whys of performance analytics. Okay, so this is kind of like deeper into the trenches with your customers. Hold on a second, time for a coffee sip. Okay, when you're in the field, your customers will often ask you they'll describe certain things that they want to put in performance analytics, and your job is not to be the turner of the wrench, right? Your job is to be the guide for the customer. And so with these 4 whys, you will be able to craft better indicators that will have better end results for your customers. Okay, so when I think about building something in PA, besides the 4 reasons for reporting, in performance analytics specifically, I want to uniformly measure performance over time. Okay? The second thing I want to do is drive immediate and continuous improvement. This is why I keep telling people on like why performance analytics is so cornerstone to success is like, imagine a company paying $250,000 to deploy something in ServiceNow and then waiting 3 months to go back and say, okay, but was it worth it? Did we improve anything over time? On day 2 of go live, performance analytics can be showing you the direction of the trends of your performance. On day 2, you can be telling if it's worth it on day 2. So drive immediate and continuous improvement. The next thing is align and pivot with business goals. Again, like you're deploying this stuff for a reason. You're pouring energy into a system for a reason, and that reason is usually tied to a business goal. You're doing incident management because it sucks to have your stuff shut down when you're trying to do business. You're doing problem management because I don't want to work on this damn issue that comes up every single week for the past 3 years. You're doing change management because, right? Think about the reasons why you're doing those things, okay? And you're setting up PA to align with those business goals, but also pivot, right? Today, we're talking about, gosh, we need to drive the time to resolve downward. Tomorrow, we could be talking about let's improve response times, right? The goals shift, right? Either in getting better and better and better at my one goal, or I'm switching to a different goal. Okay, and lastly, drive towards targets and avoid thresholds. It's not enough that your resolution time goes down. It's only enough if the resolution time goes down to your target or below your threshold, right? So the targets and thresholds provide that context. So let's marinate ourselves in these 4 whys with 3 very common failures of not taking these things into consideration. Okay, let's talk about the unjustified effort. Here's our boy Chad. And Chad just went live with whatever process, incident, problem, change, project management, I don't care. Chad just implemented this project and he's feeling pretty good about himself. Okay, January, February, March goes by. He talks to his peers. Everybody's like, yeah, this is pretty good. But his super skeptical boss, Robert Fedoruk, says, hey, was this project worth it? And our boy Chad says, of course it was worth it. Look at all those happy faces. Like, you talk to anybody, they say it was worth it. Okay, but Rory, skeptical as he is, right, crunching the numbers, He's got to go in front of his boss and say, how was it worth it? Says, okay, but how do you know it was worth it? And our boy Chad is left thinking, I don't know. So it could be that it was worth the effort, but you don't know. And so the business might think, gosh, that was money wasted. You have to know if it was worth it. Okay, so what were the critical mistakes here? Okay, they didn't measure performance over time, and they didn't commit to immediate or continuous improvement. These are the two whys that they missed. All right, let's talk about the invisible inferno. This is our boy Chad. He just went live with the process. Okay. October, November, December, January goes by. Things are going awesome. Then he has his performance review, and he gets a big fat thumbs down. What in the heck? Why am I getting this thumbs down? I thought I did a good work. Okay. But as he goes back over his reports and starts trying to piece the puzzle together, okay, the first month was okay. The second month, there's a fire that continued into the second month, and the third month, and the fourth month. And he didn't even know there was a raging inferno going that he wasn't checking on. I should have known about this months ago. The whole house was burning down. So what whys did he miss? No immediate or continuous improvement, and no targets or thresholds. He might have known that response rate was trending downward, but he didn't know that it was so far below threshold that the customers were screaming. All right, the last paradigm that you'll get when you kind of ignore your performance analytics whys is the freaking reporting chaos, okay? And this is what happens when you don't have PA or even really reporting in place for a process that you put. Okay, here's our guy Chad, right? And without performance analytics, he is basically week after week, month after month, tracking the indicators he cares about in Excel sheets. A new line, a new tab, a new Excel sheet, whatever. And then at some point in time, he's aggregating that up into one big Excel sheet. And that's what he's going to go to his performance review with. And if you look at his peers, what are they doing? They're doing their own stuff too. So you got this big tangled mess of Excel sheets, Word documents, even email to say, here's how we're performing. And so the organization, like the top level of the organization, is trying to make decisions and refine efforts and align resources based off of the aggregation of hundreds of Excel sheets, hundreds, maybe thousands of emails. So it sucks to do this stuff off tool, right? You don't want to be doing this in Excel. You don't want to be doing it like everybody bakes their own, okay? And so what were the whys that this paradigm missed? No alignment with business goals when everybody's measuring it their own way, and no alignment to targets or thresholds because everybody's just doing their own thing and they're all in different places. All right, so let's just, again, the 4 whys: uniformly measure performance. And I beg you, take a screenshot of this. Okay, this is something that I come back to all the time, right? As a way of second thinking what I'm doing in PA, or telling my customers what to think about when they're thinking about indicators. So give you a second to take a screenshot there. Okay. So when we're building performance analytics indicators, there are 3 things that I always run through to make sure that my indicator is good for measuring performance, okay? So here's the 3 fundamentals of an indicator. The first fundamental is unit. Be precise about the unit of measure. Are you measuring volume, dollars, percentage, a rating? Are you measuring time? And this isn't obvious. I can't tell you the number of times people say, yeah, give me incidents by priority in PA. Give you what about incidents? The count of them? The distinct count of the companies that spawned them? The cost of the incidents? The time of the incident? What do you want? You have to measure something. You have to aggregate something. Okay? And if the unit is not immediately obvious, you don't have an indicator yet. Okay? And so it seems like it's the simplest thing in the world, but friends, people F this up all the time. And you can tell because you'll get a dashboard that's basically just 5 different flavors of incident by priority, right? One's a pie chart, one's a bar chart, and one's a stacked bar chart. I see it all the time. Okay, number 2, direction. And this is my favorite fundamental of indicators because it allows you to use your human instincts to invoke moral judgment. Okay, I see this trend and my guts say that's bad. I don't want this trend to continue. And we talked earlier about maximizing good outcomes, minimizing bad outcomes. Okay, so we always have to think in terms of direction because it's not obvious. Okay, CSAT scores, we want to maximize that, right? So if the line goes up on a CSAT score indicator, that's a good thing. But do we want the line to go up on time to resolve an incident? No, we don't. We want that line to go down. So you must always think about your indicators in terms of its direction. And that's going to have broad-reaching impacts far beyond what you yourself are building in PA. Trust me on that. We're going to get back to that. Okay, so directionality. Now, I will say not every indicator does have a direction, but most of them do, and the best ones should. Some things just are, like they're not good or bad, but when you're talking about performance and improvement, you want to have a direction there. You want to get to the types of indicators that can be morally judged. All right, the last fundamental is clarity, and this is like more of a guidepost than a thing to build into it. But if you think about how people ask you questions, like build a report that gets me incidents by priority, right? Get me the count of incidents by each priority right now. That's a report that you can build. But when you're applying that to PA, don't confuse the thing that you're measuring by ways you can group it. When I look at a static report that's just a query, it's just what's my query, what am I grouping it by? And the two are just, it's like they just go together like ham and cheese. Train just left the track here. Hold on a second. Yeah, you don't confuse the measures of the grouping. In reports, you do this all the time. You just say, here's the query, here's the group by. In performance analytics, because you can have multiple breakdowns, don't confuse it with the grouping measures, okay? Because you can group by a number of different things. You can group by any breakdown, and you probably will want to group by many of them, okay? But it's so critically important to realize that the indicator value is valuable in and of itself. If I'm measuring the time it takes to close an incident, that's valuable whether or not I'm breaking it down by priority, by company, by the time of day the ticket was created, by whatever. It doesn't matter what the breakdown is, that indicator is value on its own. Now, the reason I'm harping on this, and the reason you will thank me for this later, is because if you were just the kind of person that took the requirements and built the requirements, no questions asked, you will be building hundreds and thousands of extra indicators into your system. Because you'll have an indicator that's like, oh, this indicator is the time to resolve. Then you'll have another indicator that says, this is the time to resolve for the service desk. And this is the time to resolve for priority 1 tickets. And you'll be building these as indicators, not knowing that you're just going to flood your list of indicators and make them completely unmanageable. So whenever anybody says, buy this, buy that, they're talking about breakdowns. They're not talking about an indicator. It's your job to separate the two. Okay, I kind of harped on that one enough, but I hope you guys get the point. Let's test some fundamentals. Okay, so we're going to talk about different scenarios I've seen in the wild and rate them based off of their unit, their direction, and their clarity. So the first one, I want 2 indicators. I want closure by group and time to close by. Okay, so that's got really bad unit definition because they haven't told me what by group. Closure by group, like what, the count, how long it took? Time to close by priority. The units are bad. They're not clearly stated. It's also got bad direction. I don't know if either of these things should go up or go down. And then it's bad clarity because they've said by group, by priority, right? They're mixing and matching the things that they should be measuring. If they had been clear on their unit, the clarity would have been much better. Okay, let's reduce average resolution time. We use priority, group, etc. as breakdowns. Okay, this is a good unit. Average resolution time. I know how to calculate that. I know exactly what I'm measuring time. It's also good. It's got good directionality. I want to reduce the average resolution time. Easy. I want that to go down. And it's clear, okay? Because they're not saying get me average resolution time by group. They have literally separated them for you. They know the difference between an indicator and a breakdown. How quickly are we meeting SLAs? Okay, it's got bad unit definition because what are we measuring? And if I dig into it, I might get to the point that it's time, but the unit isn't adequately articulated. It's also got bad direction, as in no direction. How quickly are we meeting SLA? Should that go up or should it go down? It's not stated. It does have good clarity though. Like we are talking about one thing and we're not talking about what it's broken down by. All right, what's the percentage of SLAs? What percentage of SLAs do we meet? It's got good unit definition. We're talking about percentages of a whole. It doesn't have good directionality because they haven't stated, do we want this to go up or down? Right? Surely we want to maximize this, right? And then for clarity, it's got good clarity because it's not mixing it up with by this, by that. All right, and lastly, we want to maximize the percentage of SLA met and perform above 85%. Great unit definition, okay? Percentage of SLAs met, that's a unit definition of itself. Great directionality because they want to maximize it. Awesome clarity because they're not mixing it up with anything that you sort or group by. And I'll give this one extra bonus points because they're also saying where the rubber meets the road, right? If we're going at 86%, we're doing great. We don't have to worry about it anymore because we're performing above our threshold. All right, last thing. No, not the last thing. Sorry, just kidding. Your audience is human. Always consider this when you build something in performance analytics. Okay? True story here. This is a PA graph that one of my customers used. I have the permission to use it. Okay. Take a good long look at this graph and tell me what it means. Okay? You got what's SAP incidents, new incidents weekly. Okay, that's what these things compared to resolved incidents weekly. All right, and then over top we have open tickets weekly. And you tell me, is it good or bad? What's going on here? And you're probably doing a little bit of this right now. Like I just don't know what the heck this thing is telling me. And you're absolutely right. This graph is not tuned to human consumption at all. It's basically just somebody said, well, I need to know opens and closed and chart that against a new versus closed versus. It doesn't tell you anything. You can't cast moral judgment on this. You have to dig too deep into the details to figure out anything insightful out of this. And you likely won't. This isn't going to tell you anything. Okay, now contrast this with this chart. Okay, this is incidents that haven't been updated in 30 days, right? Fundamentally in my heart, I know that's bad. I want to minimize that, but look at the line go up. We are in trouble, okay? And then we even have this open incidents line up top. So the bulk of my open incidents have been open for more than 30 days. I can look at this and I'll be like, holy cow, man. Like, this is some BS here. I don't want to live in this world. All right, we also see that at some point somebody put a threshold. We want no more than 25 open incidents that are not updated in 30 days. Poof, we breached that days ago. Okay, now we're really in trouble. And we also see that on January 30th, somebody said, let's set a target. Let's get down to 10. But this thing is still going up. So whatever our efforts are to get down to our target, are failing and we're above threshold, and in context of our open tickets, we're doing exceptionally bad. This chart tells a story, right? A very bad red pill story, but it tells a story. And it tells a much better story than just piling a bunch of stuff on the chart. Okay, now speaking of piling a whole bunch of stuff on the chart, there is a limit to the amount of stuff people can glean insights from on a dashboard. And so I think the baseline of the industry is put a ton of stuff on the dashboard and let's just see what happens. And like we want to inundate people with cool graphs and whatnot. And then the other thing, like ServiceNow's Workbench, is just like, take a look at this thing, okay? Now, it looks cool. God, I love using it. Just like all these things move together in synchronization, and there's lots of stuff to see, but it doesn't provide insight right off the bat. You really have to sit and stare at this. And when you like really start counting the number of data elements that are presented to you, like I stopped counting at 21, right? But there's still more on there. I just counted this thing as 1, but there's actually like probably 10 or 12 things in there alone. And that's one tab. You can't look at this and just say immediately, like, oh, there's a story there that my eyeballs can tell, right? Here I have to engage my eyeballs, my brain, like a library of knowledge in my head. It's too much effort to get to, am I doing better or worse? So do not be afraid to keep it simple. I had one customer that called me in, and they had a huge dashboard, dozens of things on it. Their customers were complaining. And so they brought me in to like, oh, let's modify all those things a little bit. And I basically said, no. Let's break it down to 3 things. Like, what are you getting beat up the most about right now? Resolution and response performance. And then what was done at the service desk. Those were the things that were getting beat up on. So we built a dashboard that had 3 and only 3 charts on it. What's the resolution performance over time? What's the response performance over time? And then what are those things for the service desk? Well, the resolution rate at the service desk. And you can tell the story here. You can tell that, okay, maybe resolution rate, we're somewhere in the high 90s. Okay, so that's great, and we're trending upward. Response performance, we're around like less than 50% and trending downward. This is where we focus our effort. Current and continuous improvement, right? And then resolved at help desk, we can see here's the number of tickets that came into the service desk and the number of tickets that were resolved at the service desk and expressed as percentages. So it's okay to start small and simple. It's totally okay. All right, let's talk targets and thresholds. Okay, they're easy features in ServiceNow to wield, except that nobody really wields them. And I think the problem is that people are scared to set a target or a threshold, because what does that mean? That means somebody's held accountable, right? Maybe. I think what people miss is how easy it is for targets and thresholds to be defined. So when I go to customers, I say a target or a threshold is a line in the sand. The tide can come in tomorrow, it can sweep that line away, right? If you don't like the line in the sand, cover it up and build another one. Targets and thresholds are mutable. They are temporary. They are meant to be changed and configured. So I always use a threshold, even if it's a dumb one, because tomorrow I'm either making a better goal or a better threshold, right? And it always puts stuff in context. Now, if you can get targets and thresholds convince your customers to put targets and thresholds on their indicators, that helps you out, because the entire PA platform is tuned to pay attention to the targets and thresholds. So you can exploit using the direction of your indicators and the targets and thresholds using the scorecards list. Okay, so ServiceNow comes packaged with hundreds of indicators, and as you build your own indicators, ServiceNow is tracking everything, right? So we had average age of last update, summed age of last update. These are just indicators that you may or may not be interested in over time. But ServiceNow has these concepts up at the top of this chart: best, worst, improved, degraded. How do you think it knows best or worst? It knows best or worst by what is coming farthest or closest to its thresholds and targets. So if you're moving far away from your target, and you've moved farther away from your target than any other indicator, you're the worst indicator. If you've got closest to your target or the farthest away from your threshold, you're the best indicator. So even if you're not caring about certain indicators at the time, having targets and thresholds allows you to capitalize on what ServiceNow is doing for you in the background anyway. So, and this is really powerful because I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, we're 3 months into this implementation. Now the CIO wants to know, well, did this improve or not? Right? What did we gain from doing this? Okay, let's go back to our scorecards and see which ones have improved or degraded over time. Which ones are best and which ones are worst. And you can't do that really well unless you're doing thresholds and targets. All right, so if you can keep all of that knowledge, right, what do you want to learn now? Okay, and I would say the mechanics, right, learn the performance analytics basics on indicator sources, breakdowns, breakdown mappings, buckets, PA scripts, all that good stuff. Learn about thresholds and targets. Learn how to wield that really effectively, and then also learn ServiceNow Spotlight, okay? Because I've talked to you about focusing in on indicators, what makes great indicators, what composes a great indicator. We've talked about making sure that the indicators are presented in a way that a human can instinctually and emotionally pass judgment on the direction. We've talked about all of that. Now bring it back to the 4 purposes of reporting, right? Bring it back to that idea of, now that I know what my good outcomes and bad outcomes are, use Performance Analytics Spotlight so that your work management reports, my list of to-dos for me or my group, can be informed by the outcomes that you're maximizing or minimizing. I'll just kind of leave it with one last example. Like, I have 10 tickets in my queue. Which one should I do? And your first answer might be, do the highest priority one. Okay, I have 8 of the 10 are P1s. Which one do I do? Gosh, maybe the one that hasn't been updated in the longest amount of time. Okay, I got 5 of them that haven't been updated in 10 days. Now which one should I do? Do the one for the customer with the lowest CSAT score, right? You integrate all those outcomes together, and then you know now more than ever the precise work to get to first. And this is kind of the holy grail, I would say, of a PA implementation, is not only can we pass the outcomes up to the people who have poured the energy into getting the process stood up, but I can also make it such that the work management underpins the outcomes. So again, back to what you want to learn about, where's my slide? Performance Analytics Spotlight. And I think when you know how to build PA, like I've just described, when you know how to engage customers, explain these concepts to them, then you have the technical basics. And Spotlight, you have now your own way of maturing your customers up to a level where the energy that they've poured in is totally worth it. All right, I've talked long enough. I hope I didn't go way over for you folks. I will now be more than happy to take questions.
Thank you, Robert. It was so insightful. I really learned a lot from this whole session, and I think a lot of questions that I wrote down have already answered. But I have just one quick question from you. So if it is like, how to capture the reporting requirements, what would be your advice here?
Capturing the reporting requirement. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here.
Yeah.
Capturing the reporting requirements comes down to, well, this is more for PA than reporting in general, right? But
reporting
I would
in PA,
say, yeah, reporting in PA, like, or Tableau, whatever the tool, I would say focus on this first. When somebody says, and let's do reporting, and let's be frank here, most scopes will be like,
cannot see your screen.
Oh, you can't see my screen?
No.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
All right. Is it the four reporting types
Yes.
screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So the first thing you want to do is get this, right? What, like, usually the customer doesn't quite, they have a vague understanding of what they want to report on. They know the process is going to work and that the outcome is going to be good, right? But remember our failure points, right? The unjustified deployment. If they don't have the receipts that the performance has improved, then, you know, it doesn't matter what people say. The only thing that matters is the receipts. So I would start off with, what is a good outcome of this process? What is a bad outcome that you're using the process to avoid? Okay, so that's where I start off, is talking about outcomes. If you can't talk about outcomes, then the process is not defined well enough yet. Like, why on earth would I spend $1 million refining my incident management process? Ever. Right? You might tell me, blah, 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 our resolution rate is too high. How do you know? Right?
Yeah.
You should have been measuring the bad outcomes. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Then the second most important thing is how to measure it.
Yep.
Right? So that's, I mean, it sounds deceptively simple, but even getting them to think in terms of outcomes is the hardest part. And I think if you can get it to the point where you're talking about outcomes, right? And feel free to screenshot this slide, feel free to make your own, but go to your customers and say, okay, what you're talking to me about, like, do we have something that allows people to manage work? Okay. Do we have something that allows us to see the good outcomes? Do we have something that allows us to see the bad outcomes? And then usually the leftovers are the insight lines. Did that help?
Yes, totally. Thank you, Robert. And I think now we have our floor open for anybody else if you have any questions. So go ahead, guys. Unmute yourself and we can,
How do we identify the bad outcomes of the process?
How do I identify the bad outcomes of the process? Is that the question?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Robert.
Okay, I would say go back and, okay, so take a screenshot of this and then also do some thinking about, for any one thing, what am I controlling for? Like, and start off with ITIL. What are you controlling for in incident management? Uptime. And so in incident, a bad outcome is a long duration incident. Something that hasn't been updated in 5 days is a bad outcome. There isn't a way to draw these out, and it's not always natural, right? If you just parachuted me into a process that I didn't know, like facilities management, like, I don't know what, I would need to have a discussion with my clients. And you can usually get to it by asking them questions like, what do your customers beat you up for? Everybody's got a customer that hates them, right? Why does your customer hate you? My customer hates me because it takes me 5 days to get in touch with them after they submitted a ticket. There's your bad outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, another example would be number of incidents that did not meet the SLA. Would that be a bad outcome, for example?
Absolutely, it would. It would be hard to measure that one in particular because in the ServiceNow world, you can have multiple SLAs per incident. So when people ask me number of SLA breaches on a ticket, I would say which SLA.
Yeah, but when you take the KPIs of the process, you're anyways getting it, right? I mean, a percentage. Yeah. So from that, the report is anyway given, like, if 90% of your incidents have met the SLA, which means 10% did not meet the SLA. So when you take the KPIs, we are automatically reporting the bad outcome as well. So
yes.
Yeah. So
it is a great example, I would just say, from like I would just highly encourage you to take that from like, don't think about it in terms of like incidents with breached SLAs, just think about it as breached SLAs. And then use the type of SLA as a breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah? You see what I mean? Because it would be like, okay, across, like, an SLA is just a promise made, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some promises are more profound than others. I promise that this service is going to have more uptime, right? Is a more profound promise than I promise that if you email me a ticket, I'll get back to you in 5 hours, right? Now, you might want to say, how do I perform overall on all my promises? But then I guarantee you people will want to say, but seriously, just the big one. Like, did we keep the uptime we wanted? Then you could basically use a breakdown, right, to get to that data. And this is, remember when I was talking about clarity as a measure for as a component of a good measure?
Mm-hmm.
This is where you say, like, SLA pass or fail is the number of, or the percentage or the number of SLAs passing or failing would have good clarity. And then you would just put a breakdown into the SLA indicator so that you could, you could just do the whole thing by the type of SLA or OLA or what have you. I hope I hope that was clear. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yes, Robert. Yeah. So I got it. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Robert and Sai.
Great question, by the way.
Yeah, indeed. We have one more question from Swami. Will PA useful to get the results on previous record or new records created after PA rolled out?
Oh, wow. This is one of the best technical questions in the PA space. I'm going to be super honest with you. I still haven't got it right. There are lots of PA indicators that you can do in arrears. Like you can look into the past and you can derive them even months later. A good example is like things that have been created, right? So number of new incidents, number of number of new incidents is a great example of something you can do in arrears because the created date never changes. What you got to be really careful of is something like number of tickets that haven't been updated in the past 3 months. If you didn't start tracking that 3 months ago, you're done. Like you can't go back and track that historically. You have to track that from the point you want to onward because update date changes all the time. So you might be looking back like 5 days ago, was this ticket not updated in 5 days? But you can't possibly know that because that updated date could have changed the day after, which was 4 days before today.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So anytime you're dealing with an indicator that's somewhat dependent on date, but that date field changes, is open to mutability, that indicator is less reliable when you're trying to determine it historically. It'll be fine from today onward, right? Because PA will just write the score on the score sheet and everything will be great, but you can't like go back and say, was this true?
Yeah, I think this is the same case when the hope count is there, like how many times assignment group changed and who changed it and how many, for how long they took it in their queue.
Yeah. There's ways around that, like if you use those ancient metric definitions, man, go way back. Because the metric definitions will keep a kind of like unchanging timestamp, and you might build an indicator based off of that.
Yes. Thank you, Swami. This was a really good question. Do we have more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question here. Yeah. So the question is like, apart from your general processes, like your incident, problem, change, or whatever, but if you're designing a service request processes, let's say procurement processes. So while collating the requirements, how do we collate the reporting requirements, especially if you can't prepare reports from a normal reporting process? If you want to go from a performance analytics perspective, how do you cater those requirements? How do you design those requirements?
If you don't know the process?
No. While collating the requirements for the process. It's not a process that exists already. It's not a to be process that you're defining, but it's a as is doesn't exist. It's a brand new process that you're defining. So I just want to focus on fields that really suitable for reporting. So how do you go ahead with? I know this is not a technical question that relates to your reporting, but from a requirement analysis perspective, how do you actually focus on the fields that would really suitable for reporting? Hope my question makes sense to this forum, but
yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Okay, so like a brand new process, how do I know what to report on?
Yeah,
is kind of more or less what you're asking, right?
More or less, yeah, more or less.
Okay.
I think it's a plus one from my end also, because yeah.
Okay, it's
because when I sorry, Robert.
yeah, there's an artifice to this, and it's about like having the conversational know-how to draw that out of your customer. If it's your own process, and you don't know, then I would say take a step back and consider, why are you pouring the energy into this again? Right? Because remember, the process is there to do something. It's there to make things faster or slower or more compliant or of better quality. So the process, you're sacrificing your human instincts, submitting to a process so that you can achieve what? Think about it in terms of the justification of energy, right? Okay, so is coffee a big thing in India?
Yes.
Yeah, over in North America, it's just like we have coffee snobs, we call them, right? And they're just like they have a whole ritual around, the water's got to be this temperature, the cream's got to be this temperature, it's got to have this, this, and this in it. They do their entire coffee ritual, a process. It takes long. It's not just like go to the Instapot and you're done, right? There's a process around it, but they're using that process to maximize the quality of the outcome. Sorry, I hope I'm not like, I feel like you got a profound question there, but it's not the kind of question that you can kind of say do X, Y, Z, then you get the requirements. It's a fundamental understanding of the process that you're in, and it's okay to not be a process expert in that area, but somebody is, and that somebody's telling you to build it. You have to have a deep discussion with them about, why are we doing this in the first place? Who on earth gave you the money for this and why? You don't say it quite that way, but right? They're doing this for a reason. There's money, energy, time, passion being spent on this for what? And they're like, we don't know what we want to measure. The fuck are you doing it for then? It just, if I could just be that blunt, like, why on earth would you spend the money?
Yep, indeed.
Let me just pause there though. Did that help? And don't be polite or anything for me. Just like, you won't hurt my feelings. Did it help?
Well, Robert, in general, your objective defines your reporting requirements as well. So, but yeah, your objective of the process, I mean. But I'm especially looking from a reporting fields perspective. How do you actually, when you design the form, you want to design the form in such a way that your reporting requirements are also met, so that you can show your customer, hey guys, these are the outcomes out of your process. These are the reportings that we can see when your process is ready. I'm coming.
But you can't know that you can't know that from the outside in.
Yeah.
If it's a new process to you, you would not know what the outcomes are, right? They would have to be telling you. If it's a brand new process, like some of those fields, might be super needing to review. I would argue that if the field doesn't factor into some kind of report, why is it a field at all, right? So you have to get them to express to you those kind of things. Now, it will help them get to better requirements if you show them the 4 types of work, right? Work management, maximizing good outcomes, minimizing bad outcomes, and insight mines, right? And I would say, by and large, if you don't inform them about those different types of work, they will give you reports that are insight mines. They're like, give us a dashboard and let me be able to filter it by these 12 things, and they try and build one dashboard to rule them all.
Right.
So it's like I don't have a good answer in terms of like if I didn't know the process, how would I know what fields or outcomes are important? I don't. I certainly don't. I've been at this a while, and I just wouldn't. That is something that the customer knows, and if I have any job at all, it's to extract that from the customer, getting them to tell me that story. And just use powerful emotive questions. What will people hang you from a tree from? Right? What is going to get you the prize? What's going to get you a bonus? How do we win the game?
Yes.
Yep. So the
thanks.
reason why I'm asking is because I'm sure pretty much of us will agree with me. So these days when you go to a stakeholder or a customer, you may not have a wonderful brainstorming session that would lead you to every requirement in a positive way. So that's the only reason I wanted to ask this question. And but customer expects, so you are the experts of ServiceNow, so get me all the reports, get me the process from A to Z after taking the requirements for 2 sessions.
Yeah. Okay, so let me meet you in the middle. Okay. ServiceNow is, they call it an app for building apps, right? But not every app. We're not building like Angry Birds on ServiceNow. We're building work management apps. And I say, like, if you take a step back, 10,000 feet back, let's look at the task table. If I have a task to do in ServiceNow, in general, what am I maximizing for? Well, more often than not, making sure the task closed earlier is better than later, right? Making sure that a task is responded to earlier is better than later. Making sure that it's reassigned less is better than being reassigned more, right? And so, like, there's a utility, it's in the plugins, gosh, I wish I remembered its name, but there's a utility that will basically take the quote-unquote basic indicators and apply them to new tables. And so it's like, okay, I got a brand new task table. I know nothing about the process. It's the XYZ process, but it will create time to resolve, time to respond, number of reassignments, not updated in the last 5 days, not updated in the last 10 days. And that would at least give you something to walk into the battle with, right? And so you could tell that client, yeah, I am a ServiceNow expert, but I really know nothing about your process. Here's some things that can get us started, but you are going to fail in your process unless you take really good consideration about what you're trying to maximize.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Right. And then also, like, again, like the thing will deploy like a not updated in 5 days, not updated in 30 days. Like, get them to think about what those thresholds are. Right? Like, imagine if Netflix had an SLA and they were like, how many customers have we had with 5-day outages? It's probably never happened once. So for them, it might be like, how many seconds have I been down? How many incidents haven't been updated in a minute? Right? So just think about the type of work and what they should be measuring. Sorry, I know it's a really general way of saying it, but it's not us.
Yeah.
And customers will appreciate when you're honest with them about that. It's like, yes, I'm here to help you, right? But where you need the most help is defining why you're doing this in the first place.
Yep. Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Sai. I think, like Robert, one question which most of the audience might be having, and I know it's a very basic question, but like I would like to hear it from you. What do you think is the best way of, someone who is new to ServiceNow, someone who is pro in Excel, or someone who is a manager to get started with learning ServiceNow reporting and dashboards? Like, what are the resources one can follow? I know we have community, everything, but what do you think is the best learning path to get started? I know it's a very basic and very you might be hearing it every time, but just to cover it for the audience.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I think at this point, most people understand queries, right? They understand the idea that the data is sitting there, the data is broken up into different fields, and I can ask questions of the database based off those fields. So I would say, like, I don't even know if there's a really good resource for this. Maybe I should make one. Like, just get comfortable building queries. Right, and that's kind of the basic reports. And then B, if they're building in ServiceNow, right, if you're going to be a builder, take the performance analytics course. It's very, very thorough, and it gives you a breakdown of all the component pieces and how to get to thinking about performance analytics. And then I would say, like, gosh, this is a lot harder to answer than I thought it would be. PA, and I think that's one of the reasons why the adoption isn't super great, because a lot of people just think, oh, I just run this query, it'll show me historic performance. No, it won't unless you were tracking this historically. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a really great answer for that.
Yeah, no worries. I'm waiting for your book to release, and I think you might be covering it soon. So yeah, I think that's more or less covers my answer though. But because there is a lot of gap I have seen from the client's expectations versus developer. We know a lot of things, we know how to build it, but client have different expectations. So I think that needs to bridge. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's really what I was hoping I could empower you with in this presentation, is that the adoption rate and the risk of non-renewal rate about PA right now is that people don't understand how to wield PA. And wielding PA is not a question of, do I know how the component pieces work? It's about how to apply those in a solution, right? Understanding how, like, say PA does historic reporting, but why does that matter? How does it matter?
Yes.
Okay. And I hope that this presentation with, the components of an indicator, the 4 reasons you report, like tuning for human emotion, using the targets and thresholds, gets you to a place where you can guide the customer there. The building of the indicators is the easy part. The building of the widgets and the visuals, that's the easy part. The hard part is guiding the customer
Indeed.
to express the stuff that they're worried about.
Yeah,
so we have a question here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with your point. I think the way you took us through this presentation, I totally understand the gap where I was missing in past. So I think you covered it really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
A good question from Anil. Can we send email notifications for thresholds? For indicators for thresholds is about to breach, like we do for SLA when it's about to breach. Got to be really, really careful with this one, bud. And I'm halfway through producing a video that talks about this exactly. Somebody was saying, I want a performance analytics indicator that shows me tickets that are about to breach. But you have to understand that performance analytics only has a 1-day resolution. When I say resolution, I'm talking about like how minute and a time interval can it see. And your performance analytics indicators aren't running every second of the day. They're running every day, and that's as small as you can get. Now, SLAs tend to operate under a day. Okay, so within a very short time span, I can have an SLA that's fine, and then an SLA that is about to breach, and that can happen like 2 hours later. So when are you measuring it? And when are you measuring it is going to have a profound effect on whether that thing counted as breached or not. And what you'll find is when even if you could go to like an hour resolution, right, you're still dealing in a world where, okay, these ones didn't show up as breached because the measurement was at this hour. But now that it's an hour later, it is going to be breached, but my report doesn't reflect that. So the data changes too quickly within that paradigm for performance analytics to be really strong here. What you should have is a report that's less performance analytics and more just a regular query report. So you get to that, you check that report X times in a day. Like maybe I check that report every hour. Okay, which tickets are about to breach this hour? And when you're talking about can I send an email notification about the breaches, yes, you can, but there's no reason to complicate it with PA at that point. You know, send an email breach that says these tickets are about to, you know, like do a glide record query, right, and put a mail script and dump all the tickets with hyperlinks in them in the email, and just say this hour, here's the ones that are going to breach. I don't think anybody was going to want an email every hour like that, but do you see what I mean? Like, is breach? You could have a different answer for every second of the day. So you gotta pry that one apart. You got to think more about what timeline are you running on? When does this actually matter? Now, you might even sit back and say, well, maybe at the end of a day, I want to count all the times tickets may have been in threat of breach, and I want to minimize that. But now you've got to find a way to say, as soon as a ticket gets within a breach threat, build some other record to track it, and then just sum those. But you're playing a dangerous game that's going to make nobody happy if you're measuring it down to like getting PA to track second by second which things are about to breach. Hope that made sense, Anil.
Yeah, Robert, thank you for that. Robert, this is Anil. So I do have one more question actually. So PA, I understand like sometimes we go to the customer, they say it's really costly and all. So I want to understand like how we can implement PA into a larger enterprise with respect to the small enterprise, like comparing it to the small enterprise and giving the values to both of them in a reasonable cost.
Right. Yeah, there's a few different ways I can go with this, so just give me a second to...
On that note, Robert, can I add something? Saurabh this side.
Yeah.
It's in the same note. So
sure.
Yeah. So from what little I have come across, having implemented process for a few clients, right? So I see that superficially the organization underestimate reporting as a whole. Right.
Oh yeah.
And
oh yeah.
Is it because that they are more happy with their data analyst input, and they just see ServiceNow as a database, or is there something in the fraternity itself that resists organizations taking reporting as seriously as it should have? Because I think it's very important after this session, at least.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll deal with that one right after. Like, how do I get people to understand the value of PA? So if I was, and I have been in this position a lot. Right, where people say, but it's too expensive, right? Like, okay, but you just spent $250,000 deploying this tool. Was it worth it? And was it worth it on day 2? And then people are like, I don't know. I'm like, well, somebody's going to figure it out, right? And that person is probably going to spend a lot of time, frequently, 1 second. Buddy, I'm on the phone, okay? Can you make me drive? No, I cannot. Ask your sister. Sorry. Just making expectations clear to the kids. All right, what was I saying? Blah, blah, blah. Right. Again, somebody is going to find this out, hook or by crook, right? And they're either going to be trying to do this performance analysis in arrears, right? And so there's basically they're going to be pouring labor into figuring out if this is going to work or not, and they will never be sure. Meanwhile, their peers who have adopted PA are changing their tactics day to day. Holy cow, our resolution response rate was terrible yesterday. Today we're going to focus on making sure that the response rate is clear, right? And so there's always a price tag, and it's just the reality of the world that as soon as you price something, that price is wrong for a lot of customers. But you have to express it in terms of what they are getting, and it's like, okay, well, listen, if it's not worth it to you to ensure you're meeting resolution times. If it's not worth it to you to understand where you're at against those measures in your process, then okay, don't buy a PA. That's okay. Just worry about how you're going to track it anyway. So to me, it's just like there's a price, but the price allows me to be way more I'm going to say agile out of context here, but it allows me to be way more agile. I could change the way I work day to day based off of what indicators I perform against. And never with PA am I ever going to look like I'm going to go to a customer who's been pissed off for 3 months, right? That's going to happen when you don't have PA, because you didn't know how bad you were doing until you get to the customer who's already pissed off. With PA, I'm looking at that stuff every day, and I'm going to find out very, very quickly if somebody's pissed off about me, or if I'm not doing my promises, and I'm able to fix that in real time. So I would just get real practice in telling that story. You're not going to win them all; it's just the nature of the game. But you heighten your odds by being able to tell that scary story about what's life like without PA. All right, so the second question was about, I totally lost my train of thought here, folks. The second question was, sorry, remind me.
Yeah, it's about the organizations superficially underestimating reporting as a whole, right?
Oh, yes, okay. This is because IT, okay, to some extent, IT is still kind of a new business process, right? It's a new business discipline, information technology. ITIL helped build a common language for us to use. Now we have these other frameworks, Agile, DevOps, and all this kind of thing. And then what we develop is I don't know. There's a lot of things that IT has to worry about, but I always compare it to all my uncles are engineers, civil engineers, and my uncle is he's the head engineer for water management in a city in Canada. Okay, and he knows pass or fail on everything. Everything he's got to take care of, he knows exactly the one thing he has to look at for that paradigm. And mechanical, electrical, civil engineers are tuned to figure out how do I know if this thing I've built is failing or operating within parameters. That is the nature of their discipline. And IT, I don't think, has enough of that discipline. IT also has an environment that doesn't lend itself well to that, just with a amount of changing, but they certainly don't have an engineering level of discipline when it comes to this stuff. That's why they underestimate reporting. That's why they rarely know the things that they should be reporting on. They just want to have a line item, quote unquote, do reporting. Okay, so
right.
It's that's a terrible you're talking about moving the direction of an asteroid with a rowing boat oar. We're not going to change that, right? We're not going to change the industry that way. But when we're in the trenches, when it's you and your customer, me and my customer, you and me and a customer, right? We can change it one at a time. We can open their eyes. And again, break it down into those human, relatable, emotive questions. Why are you dumping all this energy into the process? You will be shocked when you ask that question. Why are you bothering doing incident management? And people will like blink twice and look at you like, what do you mean? Everybody does incident management. Look them straight in the eye. So what? Why are you doing incident management?
Great.
Right? And they'll sputter and they'll be like, but their eyes will open. Okay? And then that's when you just hit them with you're pouring energy into this. Your body does not want to do it this way. Why are you forcing everybody to work this way? Because it sucks when our systems goes down and our customers yell at us. Oh, yeah, it does. How do we minimize that? Or what do you want to minimize first?
Right. I can relate to that.
Yeah. So it's not it's not like the conversations isn't an engineering conversation. It's a human subjective conversation to get them to think about it in terms of engineering terms. How do I know I'm operating within kind of optimal parameters?
Yeah, Robert. Yeah, that pretty much answered my long-standing doubt in mind.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for this
And
question.
Sure.
Go ahead,
Actually,
Robert.
I'll add one thing there too. I will say that the ServiceNow community, like that's one thing. If I could change anything about the ServiceNow community, that's what I would change right away, because I think we all got bitten by the bug. Oh wow, look how flexible this platform is, and the things I can build, and I can do it quickly, and I can manifest my will. I can literally build my will with the ServiceNow platform. And so we are naturally kind of like a customer says, hey, can we do this? Oh yeah, hell yeah, we can do that. Let me show you. Let me do. And then it tunes our minds to be fulfiller of request, right? The customer asks me to build blah, 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 blah. And oftentimes we don't take a step back and say, whoa, hold on a second. Should we be doing that? Is there a better way to do that, right? And so we are not, like, we all need to be better at being the guidance, not the execution. The execution too, but the guidance first.
Right.
Yep. Okay. I think we do not have any further questions in chat. So one last question to you, Robert, and it's
Yes.
yeah. So how was Vivid Chat born?
What was that?
How was Vivid Chat born actually? How did it came to your mind? Like how it?
Yeah. I'm not the founder. No, I'm not the founder. I'm the chief experience officer, so I am in charge of everything from pre-sales to development of new content packs to support of our customers. Basically, any way customers interact with us or feel about our product is where I come in. Vivid Charts is the brainchild of Mitch Stutler. He was working for Accenture for a few years, and whenever they had a service portal project that was like, oh, but we need some kind of custom report that normal reporting or PA can't really facilitate, he would be the one that basically packaged that up into a service portal object. And he did that for a few years. He's basically like, you know what we need is a platform for doing that. And so him and his buddy Rob started Vivid Charts. Rob Walsh is our head of sales, and and so it's kind of matured and mutated in that time. We are now a visualization and experience interface for ServiceNow. And maybe someday you might let me on again and we'll talk about the personas of reporting, right? Actually, let me just go with that.
Yeah.
The three personas of reporting are operators, so people who are going to be managing their work, right? And those people, like a list view with Spotlight attached to it is probably the best thing for them. They don't care about trends or analysis or reconciliations. They just want to know what work to do next. Then we have the analysts, which PA is excellent for. But what people don't talk about a lot is the stakeholders, right? the people who paid the money to get these processes in place, and what kind of reporting do they need. And I'll just say it right now, it's not usually PA. They don't want to come to a dashboard and see a ton of PA things on it. They definitely don't want to go to the analytics hub in PA. They want somebody to say, here's the 3 things you have to know and what we're going to do about it. And Vivid Charts provides kind of the aesthetic control and custom formulation that ServiceNow doesn't have out of box. Thanks for letting me pitch that, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's really very simplistically you told us how the personas actually look like. It looks very easy now. Like operators wants list view, analyst wants a dashboard, and stakeholders is looking altogether a different perspective about the data. He doesn't want even either a list view or even a dashboard. He's looking for something else. So yep.
Yeah, it could be a dashboard, but it could also be like, what do we do when we export data out of ServiceNow?
Yeah.
We pack it into Excel. What do we do after that? We sometimes pack it into PowerPoint. And so Vivid Charts allows you to have like a 1-page dashboard. It allows you to have a PowerPoint-like experience, like a slideshow. Yeah. And it also has what we call a loop. And a loop is like a carousel on a wall monitor. Yeah. It's like a dashboard that automatically cycles. Yeah. Happy to demo that to anybody who wants to take a look at it.
Yeah, indeed. And there's a lot of stuff I found about Vivid Charts on site, and there is a lot of videos you have already covered. So I really like that, and that really gave me an insight what it is actually doing and what exactly reporting doing and adding to ServiceNow as a whole platform. Mm-hmm. Yep. And one last question, Robert. What do you see, how reports and dashboards are going to look for industry-specific solution that ServiceNow is moving into? And also to some, personal information that you have on ServiceNow, PII data, sensitive information. How do you see, reports going on in future,
Yeah, I would worry more about PII on normal query-based reports, because that's actually display the record, right? And if you have PII involved, if you put the description on there and somebody's put their social or their credit card information or whatnot, then you're in trouble. Yes. So worry about that more on the day-to-day reporting. Anything that's listing records, make sure your ACLs are intact so that only people who can see the PII can see it. Or worry about putting an encryption mechanism over your instance. I don't worry about PII so much on PA, because PA isn't dealing with show me the records. PA is dealing with show me an aggregation of the records. So there's nothing PII about, or there's nothing compliance related that says show me what things are broken down by, or the count, or the average, or the percentage. There's nothing compliance related about that.
Yeah. So
I do worry about security, just not in the context of PA. Reporting in general, yes. How do I see performance analytics and indicators going for industry specific stuff? Mm-hmm. Hard to say. I have some controversial opinions on this. So I'd say if it goes anywhere, I'd say that the indicators that come packaged with the solution will be a lot more refined. So they say, in the automotive, and ServiceNow already has kind of this already, they have the PA benchmarks. So in ServiceNow today, you can literally say, I'm in the automotive industry. What are other ServiceNow automotive industry people doing for their incident resolution? Oh, I'm way above or way below that. Okay, so that it kind of already exists in the ServiceNow paradigm. What I've always done. Do we have time for a short story? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Here's how that concept has done damage in my life. Okay. I worked for a very large media and advertising company a long time ago. Okay, global, just tens of thousands of employees. They had a service desk in North America. Okay, and in media and advertising, it's always bleeding edge technology and very high touch. Somebody calls you up and say, "Hey, this projector's not working? Well, it's because they're doing like a multi-million-dollar pitch to like a car company, right? It's like nothing is table stakes. Everything is like millions of dollars. And so the help desk had a very like white glove. Like they were providing far more value than a normal help desk would. By and large, their front line was way deeper tech savvy and willing to spend a lot longer with each customer, right? And so the organizational leadership would always take a look at that, and they would be like, oh, Gartner tells us that the average help desk call should take 15 minutes. How come ours are 45? We must be doing something wrong, right? And what they were forgetting was that no, they were applying a competitive advantage. They were spending more on their frontline resources. They were spending more time to make happier, more effective customers, and they were winning more business for it. So, like at one point they just said, oh, well, the problem is American resources are expensive, and so that's why we're spending so much at the service desk. So they fired, hundreds of my peers. They brought in a ton of outsourced labor that didn't know the culture. They didn't know the level of touch that their customers needed, and they refused. And the company, our big company, didn't service the customers, and so it was literally $1 billion mistake because the customers revolted. All sorts of deals were lost because the customers weren't getting the response time they needed, and they basically a few years later they nuked IT and they bought some other company to provide IT. So $1 billion mistake. Hundreds of people lost their jobs because of it, and that's because just some dude took a look at a Gartner help desk report and said that number's lower than mine. I'm doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. So always be careful about the basis of your comparison. You could be different for industry leading advantageous reasons.
Yep.
So whatever ServiceNow comes out with, always carry that lesson to your customers. Okay, you are different. Everybody can see that. Now ask yourself why that might be. And don't assume it's because you're doing something wrong. You might have a competitive advantage over your peers that you might want to keep.
Yep, true. And that looks like a blunder. Yes, all right. So I think we do not have any more questions. So I would like to take a chance and close it here. So thank you, Robert. And it was really kind of weekend I would like to have. Spending the time with the with someone, some special guest, and talking about things that I love to do, and with such an amazing audience. Thank you very much, actually, for joining us. Any last word you would like to have with the audience who have joined us today?
No, you guys took 2 hours out of your evening tonight to be with me, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, everybody hit me up at LinkedIn. Here's how you spell my name. That's in the chat. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'll be back anytime you want me.
That's so humble of you, but yeah, pleasure was all ours to have you here, and happy to have you again in future if you find time about pivot charts for sure. All right, and this is about the next Maverick session we are going to have, and I think we are not going to talk again before Christmas. So happy Christmas to all of you, and thank you, Robert, and thank you everyone for joining.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
Yep, thanks, Robert. Bye-bye.
Good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.